Today is episode 79 with Dr. B.
Welcome to the Living Beyond ADHD podcast. If you're looking for a fresh perspective and actionable steps on hot topics from focus to follow through to self-management and more, you are in the right place. Welcome your host, innovative educator, coach, and psychotherapist, Dr. B.
According to government statistics that were last updated in 2018, there are a lot of unhappy people that are suffering in the world. In the U.S. alone, 32 million people suffer from anxiety. 17 million suffer from depression, and around 12 million suffer from PTSD. And quite frankly, I think these numbers are low. And according to Forbes magazine, the self-help industry generates over $11 billion annually. What I find interesting is that many of the self-help books and the videos that get purchased sit on the shelf collecting dust. So for today's podcast, I want to explore this phenomena and help you get curious about what does and does not work and why. How much time do we have? Not much. So let's get to it.
This podcast is sponsored by Pure Potential with Dr. B. You can head over to drbarbaracohen.com and find the podcast transcript, great free content, plus information on programs and services, including the groundbreaking Adventures in Achievement online coaching program and one-to-one services with Dr. B. That's drbarbaracohen.com.
Dr. B, what do you make of the fact that self-help has become an $11 billion industry?
It's a pretty hefty industry, that's for sure. And, we could say they're great at marketing. We could say that unhappy people buy things. We could also say that people are hungry for solutions and that these books are supposed to offer solutions. I can certainly tell you that my idea of getting solutions from books years and years ago was buy them, put them on the shelf, and because I own them, by osmosis, I was going to get the information that I needed to fix my life. And I used to buy a lot of self-help books. My shelves were full of them. I had more and more bookcases. I kept accumulating books. Some of them I skimmed, some of them I read, some of them I got frustrated and threw against the wall because they didn't help and they didn't have the information I needed. And some of them, like I said, I just kind of thought that the information was here in the house and it would just come to me through osmosis. And, there's a lot of very, very unhappy people in the world. When I was a researcher back starting in 2008, I think it was, for 5 years in 2 international studies. They said back then, because one of the studies was a severe depression study in adults, and it was said back at that time that by the year 2020, which is here we are, that major depression was going to be the number one disability in the world. Because I've got some stats here, which is in the U.S., there's 32 million people who suffer from anxiety, 17 million that suffer from depression, around 12 million that suffer from PTSD. All of this information coming from a government website that was last updated 2018. And I'm willing to bet these are understated because there's a lot of people that just aren't identified and cover it really well or have shame about revealing it and don't go seek help, and they aren't counted. I'm sure it's millions and millions more than this.
Okay, so you raise a couple of interesting points there. One is people buy these books or CDs or videos or whatever, and they just don't access the content within them. So one question is, why is that? And then there's a second question, which is, well, sometimes people do read those books or listen to the CDs or what have you, but it lacks key useful information. So first of all, what's holding people back from taking the book off the shelf and going through it? Is it fear of change? Is it uncertainty? What's the reason behind that? Is it just, like you said, the thought that, well, as long as you've bought the book, somehow you'll just absorb the information through the airwaves?
Well, it's that one is certainly fantasy thinking, and I was certainly guilty of it. I know a lot of people are, but if we look at things like what I teach and train in executive function skills. And one of the skills is initiating, which is getting started. So let's say it's easy to go to a bookstore or hop online, let's say to an Amazon site, if that's where you go, and buy a book. Doesn't take much effort, doesn't take much training to get online, pick out a book, buy the book, and have it delivered. That part's easy. Now the book arrives. Now you need to consume the information in the book. That takes effort, time, skills, training. You need to be able to read it, integrate it, understand it. You need to be able to remember what you read instead of reading it over and over again a million times, and that's only the first 10 pages of the book. You need to have, for some people, very specific information, step by step, including pre-steps, as I call them, which means that if this book, let's say a book on organizing, were to tell me that first step, what I need to do is I need to prioritize the things that I want to organize. They are assuming by that statement that I can prioritize, which is an executive function skill that may be underdeveloped in me. So I sit there on step one in the first part of the book with their instructions. You need to prioritize, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there staring at the book going, if I knew how to do this, do you think I would even have bought the book? No, it's really a problem because there's so many things that we need to know before we can even do what the book says to do. And if we don't have those skills, we're not going to be able to do what's in the book, execute on it, get started with it, initiate the strategies or the things that they tell us to do, because we don't have the ability yet. And then we're going to blame ourselves or get pissed at the book. And then we're not going to do anything with it, goes back on the shelf or goes in the trash. And that's it until we go look for another book that maybe will tell us how to do it better. And easy again to buy the next book. Here comes the book. Start all over again. This is kind of what I see when people often look like they're procrastinating, and people think that they're procrastinating and putting things off. And I've looked at a lot of behaviors like that, and I see that people have a series of things that they start, whether we're talking about a book in this case. I'll start this book, then this book, then this book, and never finish any of the books because I can't do what book number 1 or book number 2 or book number 3 says to do. I can't. So I keep moving to the next book and the next book, hoping that that is the book that'll unlock what I need. And when it isn't, it feels terrible.
Yeah, and is it also the case that while certainly some self-help books contain a lot of useful information, in many cases they're telling you things that you probably already know or can deduce on your own. And again, it's the execution part that's hard. It's, there's a million diet books out there, but losing weight, the formula for that is really not all that complicated metabolically. The real problem is, at least for somebody like me, not picking up the chocolate cake and having 3 slices when I know I shouldn't.
There's very little talk, from what I can see, about maintenance in terms when you bring up about diet or diet books or weight reduction or things like that. Years ago, I had created a program that had to do with reducing weight. And I started with maintenance. Because if you cannot maintain the lifestyle, the way of eating, the choice of foods, everything to maintain or sustain what you achieve, and you don't know that you can do that at the get-go, then what makes you think you're going to be doing it at the end after you drop 50 pounds, 25 pounds, whatever it is that you need to release and reduce? And then it's all coming back, plus bonus usually. The same thing is true with the things that we're talking about with these self-help books. It's like, where are they teaching us about maintenance? Even if everything was in a book on organizing, but they didn't cover maintenance. Even if I hired an organizer, but they didn't teach me maintenance. No matter what I do, everything requires maintenance. And if someone isn't going to include maintenance, whether it's for diet books, whether it's for organizing books, if they're not going to teach me the thing that I need to do in an ongoing way, then what is the point in putting in the time, effort, or energy to even do what's in the book? Because I know I'm not going to keep it because I can't maintain it because no one taught me how to do that.
So why, what are they, and when I say they, I mean the self-help book industry, what are they doing? Are they just selling hope? Is it just all marketing? Why are they leaving out the maintenance part?
It's a really good question. I'm going to guess because I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking truly, but I don't think they think about it. I think they think about read this, do this, get this. Now you have it. You achieve the goal. That's not achieving the goal to me. If I'm going to put in the time, effort, and energy, I want to keep what it is that I put all that time, effort, and energy into, whether it's my house being clean and organized, whether it's the information and strategies in a book, whether it's weight, whatever it is. If I'm going to do the work and follow the plan, and it's a good plan, let's say, but I can't keep it, and let's say this has happened to me repeatedly because there's nowhere in there, and let's say I don't even know as a reader of a self-help book what's missing. I just know things like people say, diets don't work. I've been on 1,000,000. I've lost millions of pounds over my lifetime, and it always comes back. And I hear things like that, and I think to myself, of course it comes back. Who taught you to maintain it? Because let's say a diet, for example, is very stringent because there's tons of self-help diet books. Let's say it's very stringent and that whatever the latest crazy craze is, whether you're eating grapefruits or you're eating oranges or you're eating just protein or veggies or whatever it is that it says to do. And let's say you start out and you're doing it, and let's say you stick with it, and let's say you get to your goal. Could you maintain, or would you even want to maintain, or would it even be healthy to maintain that way of eating and living for the rest of your life? No. And so thinking of maintenance first, whether it's maintaining your home, maintaining your weight, maintaining anything, there's a cost. There's a cost in time, effort, energy to maintain. And if I look at a diet program, for example, and I say, could I do this long term? If I look at an organizational book and I say, could I do this long term, what they're saying to do? Could I do something that's organizing? Could I do anything that any of these self-help books say to do long term? Because if I'm going to do it and I want to keep it, I have to know that I can maintain it long term. And if it's cost prohibitive, time, energy, and I can't, then why would I even do it? Doesn't make any sense to me.
All right. Well, what you're saying makes sense. I'd like to now allow opposing counsel to submit a cross-examination question. Aren't you just part of the self-help industry yourself when you talk about things like this?
Whoa. What a
Come on, fess up.
sneaky. Yeah, come on. What a sneaky little question in there. You know, I have a hard enough time putting myself in the category of being in the mental health industry, let alone the self-help industry, seriously. Because, it's not that I want to go around in the world and find fault with everything, but I do see fault in a lot. Even though I see a lot of good in things, I see a lot of fault and I see a lot of problems. And unfortunately, for many, many people, the mental health industry, people become objectified. They're not people to some of the people that work with them, not all, obviously. And so if it doesn't work, you just move on, and too bad. And in self-help, it's a book. It got sold. They made their profit. There's nobody invested other than that. The author isn't walking you through the book, giving you instruction, coaching you, and supporting you, or doing any of that. Sometimes people say it's like cheerleading. Think of, I don't know, going to a big conference, and these are people that I love and admire, but I also see a problem, which is, let's say that you go to a Tony Robbins big event, and let's say you don't do anything after you go to the event. And it's state-based learning, meaning you get the help there in that state, in that environment. You learn what you learn, you leave that environment, and you no longer are connected to that state and those people. And slowly or more quickly, depending on the person, everything that you seemingly got there isn't really there anymore. And similarly, with this self-help industry, because the things that I develop, programs that I offer, and certainly the work that I've done in over 30 years in my career as a licensed mental health professional here in the state of California, also as an ADHD coach, and also as an executive function trainer, I don't sell products. I don't sell a course. If I'm selling anything, and I don't even think about selling anything, what I'm doing is I'm offering an opportunity. I'm offering an opportunity for people to get help from the materials that I offer, the training that I do, sometimes the hand-holding that I do, and the walking alongside people to make sure that they get it. Everything that I create is in the service of transformation, not just sell it, that's it, make a profit, goodbye. And if they get their transformation, that's up to them. Because it doesn't work that way. We need support. We need a community. We need someone who's going to guide us, lead us, mentor us, coach us, teach us, whatever it is that we need. And to do it in a particular way where we feel safe and supported, understood, so that we can be free to be who we are, starting where we start. There is no self-help book, no matter whether they include a DVD, a CD, some mini little course, which no one is involved other than the people that bought the book that get this little promo mini course. It's a do-it-yourself. There's no support. You're on your own. Self-help, to me, by the very words themselves, says self, which is you or me, help, me helping me, not someone else helping me and being there for me. So no, I am not a part of the self-help industry. I am part of the industry of what I consider my own little niche of the industry, which is helping people to transform their lives into something they can be proud of, that they can maintain for the rest of their life.
You make an interesting distinction there, and I don't mean to take anything away from motivational speakers, Um, but my observation is that motivation is something that comes and goes, and it goes very easily sometimes. You just don't always feel like doing whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing. But transformation is a permanent change in condition.
Correct.
So what suggestions do you have for people who have a library of untapped self-help books that want transformation?
Well, you're not going to get it most likely from a self-help book that sits on the shelf and collects dust, because it is all about you helping yourself. What I suggest is you be part of a community, which is what I offer. You have someone to guide you. You have someone to answer questions. If you were using a book in even a community like mine and you went along and you got stuck, you could reach out to me and say, hey, Dr. B, I don't understand this part. Could you explain this to me? And I would. There's nobody there with the book. In terms of motivation, because you're asking about that, you're right. Motivation can seemingly come and go, except for one fact. Motivation that comes from the outside comes and goes. Motivation that's internal, to me, doesn't come and go. It's a permanent thing. When I have a purpose, when I help people with their purpose, their mission, their goal, their vision, whatever it might be, that isn't coming and going, because motivation, in the way that I've taught it and continue to teach it, is motive, which is having a good enough reason. Ation is taking action. Don't quote me from a dictionary. I'm sure it's not broken out that way, but it's the way that I teach it and train it, because if you do not have a good enough reason inside of you to take action, that is within you. You need it. There needs to be a reason to get up in the morning, a good enough reason to get up, to get showered, to eat, to do something with your day, with your life. There needs to be a good enough reason to do anything. That motivation is a staple, and it stays. And that kind of motivation to commit to having a good enough reason to do anything, including committing to making a transformation in your life, where you can have that in an ongoing way and maintain that in an ongoing way.
So you talked a little bit about your program. Could you explain in a bit more detail what exactly it is?
Sure. So currently, we're in June, the end of June 2020. And currently, my program just opened for enrollment, so people might be interested. So I'm happy to talk about it, because there's still an opportunity available for them if this is of interest to them, which is, the program is called Adventures in Achievement. There's two parts to it. The part that's open right now is the foundational skills part of the program, Adventures in Achievement Foundational Skills. And it's a hands-on training and coaching program. And I mean very hands-on. There's tons of programs out there. You buy it and you're still doing it yourself. And maybe you get once a month, you get a coaching call with hundreds of people on a call. And that's what you get, but you're doing the material pretty much on your own. I don't create programs like that. That's not what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to devote my life to helping people to transform theirs, which means I'm heavily, heavily involved with everyone in the training, in the coaching. It's not a book. It's not a video. It's not an online class that you do by yourself. I've already talked about the fact that it's two separate programs. And you get me personally, all 30 plus years of me with all of my training from all of my years as a psychotherapist, as a coach, as a trainer, all of that. And I'm teaching my students 13 of what I consider the most essential executive function skills. These trainings are done live. We have coaching calls, group coaching calls. These are also done live, where people get on a coaching call in a group, they learn from each other and listen to what each other is being coached on, or they just come long enough to get what they need and they leave. It's up to them. But the coaching is walking through real life situations or scenarios of how to apply the skills, that anything they didn't understand or was missed in the training gets filled in a coaching call, as well as other issues they may be struggling with. And then there's community. There's a loving, supportive, and safe community. I've been known for years to have the ability to create safe spaces for people to be real, to show up, to be real, because if you don't make things real and you can't show up real, how are you going to heal and transform what you want to transform? I've never found that works too well. So there's a lot of me in the program being real, sharing experiences or stories where they're appropriate as teaching tools, not because I enjoy talking about my life so much, because that's not it. If it's appropriate to teaching and helping people to understand in the context of a real life experience, then I'll use it. And if it isn't, then it doesn't need to be talked about because there's no point to it. Not really.
All right, so that all sounds great. Suppose that somebody's listening to this right now and they say, I'd like to take part in this. How do they get connected to you?
Well, the way they're going to get connected to me is in the show notes. There's going to be a link where they can click and go to the link and get every bit of information that they need to know about this program, Adventures in Achievement, Foundational Skills. And if they decide that they want this opportunity for themselves right now, because my program is only open for enrollment twice a year, and this is the second time this year, and it isn't going to be open for another 6 months, not until next year. So there's still a few days left for enrollment. If people are interested, click the link, read the information. They can enroll straight away from that website, or if they have any questions at all, they'll also find an email address in the show notes where they can email me directly right away, hopefully, to ask any questions after they've looked at that page. And if we need to set up a quick little chat to answer something, or I can just do it by email or text, we can do that so that no one misses out on this amazing opportunity that's only available twice a year.
All right. Well, it's a fascinating topic, and I want to thank you very much for sharing your insights. It's enlightening. It's been an enlightening conversation. And so thanks once again. And it's been great talking to you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to share on this topic of shelf help, self-help, and what a mess it all is. An episode wouldn't be complete without celebrating wins, big and small, since wins are such an important part of my philosophy and a favorite quote of mine. So, what are you going to celebrate today? Perhaps you participated in my recent training series. That's certainly a win. Maybe you made a decision that you're done suffering and you're ready to transform your life. That's an awesome win. Perhaps you made a commitment to yourself to speak to yourself with loving kindness instead of anger or frustration when things aren't going well. That's a huge win. You get the point. Celebrate all of them, big and small, and none of this half-hearted celebrating. You've got to mean it. Exaggerate your emotions. Yes, wow, awesome. You want your acknowledgement and your celebration to register in your neurology with the power to move you and shift your state. The celebration of your wins is especially important now to help you keep your emotional balance and focus on the fact that good things are happening every day, and there is something good about you to celebrate every day, even with the serious world events that we are all living with or experiencing on a daily basis. Focusing on what's good or right helps us to gather the energy to take action against what isn't good or isn't right in the world and do something about it, as well as helping ourselves and those who are closest to us. You are a precious child of the universe, and you're called a human being. not a human doing, for good reason. You don't have to earn your value. You were born with it. Your value comes from who you are, not what you do. And if you need a place to know that's true, be sure to join the Facebook group Living Beyond ADHD so that you can be with others who will celebrate your wins with you and affirm that you are more than okay as you are, the human being. A favorite quote of mine, Anne Voskamp said, "Shame dies when stories are told in safe places." So the question I have for you at this point in our journey together is, do you have a safe place to tell your stories, to transform your toxic shame and make a fresh start? If you don't, I hope you will consider joining me in our safe space so that you can heal. If you resonate with the content that I share on my show and with me, I encourage you to act now and to get to the link in the show notes to learn about how you can develop your executive function life skills and transform your life right away. My program is only open for enrollment twice a year, and that time is right now. Enrollment closes this Thursday, July 2nd, 2020. If you miss the cutoff period by a few hours or so, email me at drb@drbarbaracohen.com and I'll see what I can do to get you in. It's important to act right away because the program starts with orientation on Monday, July 6th, 2020. If you miss the deadline, it's another 6 months to wait for open enrollment again. My mission, as you've heard many times before, is to put an end to the needless suffering of adults worldwide that have underdeveloped executive function life skills. And whether that happened to you because of ADHD, chronic depression or anxiety, addictions, trauma, or chronic illness, it doesn't matter. What matters is that there is something that you can do for yourself starting today. And that's the driving force behind everything that I do. Be sure to check out the show notes so that you can learn about other great resources that I've made available to you. You'll find solutions to the challenges that you're experiencing. And I would love to help you to realize a new freedom. That is, if that's of interest to you. And definitely make it a priority to join the Facebook group, Living Beyond ADHD. You won't regret it. If my podcast show is the first time that you've been hearing about executive function skills and strategies, you're not alone. If you're an adult who received a diagnosis of adult ADHD, executive function skills should also have been assessed and discussed with you, in my humble opinion. And the odds of having executive function deficits along with ADHD are very high. In fact, almost a given that you will. That's about it for today's episode on shelf help, which can do more harm than good, and what you can do about that. Listening to every podcast episode that I release is definitely a small action step and something that can help you to move your life forward one episode at a time, if you take action on the steps that I include for you. If you just listen and hear the value, but you don't take action, you won't gain the value that's there for you. It's kind of like shelf help. You just shelf the information for another time that never comes. Remember, for things to change for the better for you, you have to change, which means that you need to do your very best every day to do something that's leading you in the direction of the transformation you want to see in your life. If you have a topic that you'd like me to talk about and a half a dozen questions that you'd like answered on that topic, please submit your topic and your 6 questions to me directly at the link that you'll find in the show notes. And if you enjoyed today's episode or any of the other episodes, please share this podcast show with others, as well as rate the show. If you'd like to do more, write a thoughtful review on iTunes so that I know that I'm meeting your needs. It doesn't have to be anything lengthy, just a line or two of how the podcast is helping you, if it is. I appreciate hearing from you and knowing how my show helps you, as well as knowing you are sharing the show with others and they're benefiting as well. It means a lot to me to know that your life is getting a little bit better every time we get together. Thanks for listening. Until the next time, bye for now.
Thanks for your undivided attention. If you're eager to make positive changes in your life, head over to drbarbaracohen.com to see how Dr. B can help you today. Whether you love making changes with community support in a group environment or prefer one-to-one coaching or psychotherapy, you'll find all the information you need to get started at drbarbaracohen.com.